Hi, my name is Yulia. Hopefully you're excited to see me again, and this is the News Brief. Here we catch up with several news stories twice a week that I consider to be the most impactful to today. And then we discuss them together in the comments, so you don't have to suffer alone, and I don't have to suffer alone. And also, of course, please leave your questions, suggestions, and constructive criticism because I read all of it, and it really does help me tailor next segments to you. Let's get it. As we've discussed in the previous episode, these are now going to be divided into 3 sections, and they're going to be 3 separate videos. They all come out at the same time, so please do not worry, but they're shorter, so it's easier for you to comprehend. And as per usual, we're starting with Ukraine axis. Yesterday was an interesting day here in Kyiv, Ukraine, because there was a major threat of Russia using ballistic missiles for a mass attack on the capital city. There was intel that Russia was going to try and target embassies of Western countries, specifically the United States. Which, I don't know why they would do that, because it's considered the US soil, which means an attack on the US. But then again, in the previous episode, we talked about how they've built mobile nuclear shelters, so who knows with them. Anyways, nothing really happened, and the whole day there were air raids that we were very, very scared of, and we kept waiting for something, and it didn't happen. There was an air raid at 5 in the morning, and there were missiles flying at 5 in the morning, but not nearly as catastrophic as it was portrayed earlier. However, Russia launched an intercontinental ballistic missile over Dnipro. According to Ukrainian Air Force, on Thursday morning, Russian forces targeted enterprises and critical infrastructure in Dnipro with various types of missiles. The Ukrainian Air Force reported the attacks included an intercontinental ballistic missile launched from the Astrakhan region, a Kh-47M2 Dagger air ballistic missile fired from a MiG-31K in the Tambov region, 7 Kh-101 cruise missiles launched from Tu-95MS strategic bombers. Ukrainian anti-aircraft forces intercepted and destroyed 6 Kh-101 missiles. No significant consequences were reported from other missiles, the Air Force added. And in my opinion, when there are rumors that Russia is going to start a mass attack, it never happens that day. It usually happens 3, 4, 5 days a week later. Because that's their strategy. They want you to worry, they want you to be emotionally exhausted, they want you to be underslept because they want you to react to all of the air raids, and they want you to constantly think that something is going to happen. And then it does happen, but with a significant delay, so your, moral and mental health is just down. In Kyiv, at the base of the Motherland Monument, an event was held to mark 1,000 days since the start of the large-scale war. Participants lit 1,000 candles and joined in a prayer to honor those who gave their lives for Ukraine. The event was organized by the National Museum of the History of Ukraine in World War II. Its inspiration came from the Latvian leaders, including President Edgars Rinkēvičs, Speaker of the Seimas Daiga Meirite, Prime Minister Evika Silina, and Foreign Minister Baiba Brazi. They urged Latvians to observe a minute of silence and light candles on November 19th to remember those lost to the Russian invasion. And here is a scene of what Ukraine looks like every night. It looks like Star Wars, but it's not a movie. That's an average night in Ukraine. Just as I was talking about it, it marks 1,000 days of the invasion. It marks 1,000 nights like that. And when I say 1,000, I mean 1,000. I don't think there has been a single night in Ukraine where Russia has not been targeting us with missiles. Yes, there have been nights in Kyiv or in separate cities where that hasn't been happening, of course. But in general, there hasn't been a single night in the entire country that something wasn't flying somewhere. The Ukrainian Air Force's Center Air Command has shared a photo of an F-16 pilot, highlighting a key piece of advanced technology, the helmet. The image showcases a modernized HGU-55P helmet with the Joint Helmet-Mounted Cueing System, JHMCS. The system offers pilots cutting-edge capabilities, allowing them to guide infrared missiles with just a glance and view targets detected by radar or the data link system without relying on the head-up display, HUD. For comparison, Ukrainian Soviet-era fighters MiG-29 and Su-27 have a similar system, but it falls far behind the JHMCS. The Soviet system is less reliable, has limited functionality, and is mainly used for guiding infrared missiles and working with the aircraft's electronic optical system. However, due to its fragility and limitations, It is rarely used in real missions, unlike the widely utilized JHMCS on Western aircraft. Which is very interesting because these are just a few advantages of F-16s and how it is much easier for Ukrainian pilots and much more seamless to intercept Russian missiles when they're using modern aircraft. It's not just about the aircraft itself. It's not about missiles it can carry. It's not about just that. It's also about the fact that it's much easier to use, much easier to navigate, and much easier to operate. It's kind of like if you were trying to play a modern game on a very old computer. Obviously, sometimes it just wouldn't work at all, and sometimes it would just be glitchy. Same here. Ukraine's armed forces possess only around 50 American ATACMS tactical missiles, according to the Times. While Ukraine has sufficient HIMARS and MLRS rocket launchers to deploy these missiles, the limited supply means the military command will need to carefully prioritize targets on Russian territory, which is something I was talking about in the previous episode and more in detail in Red Lines and Burning Questions segments. Because we don't necessarily need to use these missiles in Kursk, and we're not going to be using these missiles in Kursk to take out North Korean soldiers. Because we don't have enough of these missiles, and that's just a waste. Meanwhile, this is a very interesting bit of news for those of you who are gamers or those of you who know anything about gaming. STALKER 2 was finally released yesterday after years of waiting, and that completely crashed the Ukrainian internet. The speed of browsing yesterday was absolutely abominable, and it was impossible to open any web pages. And I was wondering the whole day, what is going on? STALKER 2 was released and Ukrainians were downloading it nationwide. It was released on November 20th at 18:00 Kyiv time. The game was available on PC and Xbox consoles, including Xbox Game Pass. Owners of the game on Microsoft consoles can already pre-download it. 15 years ago, many players might not have even known that the game was Ukrainian. Some, or most, may have assumed it was Russian. Today, the Ukrainian identity of the franchise is unmistakable, with GSC Game World, the studio behind the series, taking an active role in Ukraine's fight against Russian aggression. In fact, the studio promised to donate a large part of profits to the armed forces of Ukraine from the sale of this game. And the funny thing is, this game is topping the charts and the downloads in Russia. And there are so many Russian bloggers on Telegram freaking out because the profits from buying and downloading this game are going to the armed forces of Ukraine, and Russians are obviously still downloading it. It's literally topping all of their charts. Kind of funny, isn't it? STALKER 2, Heart of Chernobyl, has officially been released. The greatest temptation is to try to control what we don't fully understand. But what do we do when faced with something truly incomprehensible? Do we flee in fear or step forward? Driven by curiosity and defiance. In the zone, every answer has a price. And the truth may be the greatest price of all. The developers stated, and here's a clip of a preview. Now that we've watched some stuff happening in the game world, here is something that happens in the real world that I wish wasn't even happening in the game world. Stripped naked and executed, Russians kill Ukrainian POWs in Pokrovsk direction. 2 Ukrainian soldiers were captured by Russian forces, forced to strip naked and led at gunpoint through a forest plantation before being executed. There are also reports that 3 more wounded Ukrainian defenders were killed at the same location. These claims are currently being verified. And this is not the first, and unfortunately not the last video that we've seen like this. Russians consistently, systemically, and systematically commit war crimes and consistently execute Ukrainian POWs, consistently do not stick to Geneva Convention, and consistently violate human rights. And they need to be held accountable, and we as a world are not doing enough to hold them accountable, especially a lot of world leaders by emboldening Putin and these soldiers by literally fearing escalation. And unfortunately, or fortunately, because this note is not great and I would not want to continue it, this is all I have for you for today in the Ukraine section. And we're going to be continuing this video in the next section called the Western Axis, so please watch it here.